Okay, well, that was a nicer intro than I've had on all my other videos. I don't know, I just felt like doing something kind of creative, and um, yeah, and I certainly had to do more sketches um, to come up with a better idea. But I think I've come up with an idea that I'm pretty happy with, that I think kind of changes the interface in a way that makes it make more sense. And I'll kind of get to that now. So I'm just going to switch over to this screen. Okay, there you go. So you can see here I've got a photo of my sketchbook. So I didn't actually get all of it in the time lapse because I don't know, my phone couldn't record for that long because it was I don't know, just a massive file. Because you know, when you're recording a video and then turning it into a time lapse, you end up with a 3 hour long video, which is a lot. So yeah, but this is the final thing that I ended up with. Um, yeah, so when I started, I kind of was still on that idea that I had last video with the options page coming up. And then I kind of thought, you know what would make more sense is if that page coming up idea, you know, the page moving idea, was to do with, you know, the actual running of the timer and stuff. So then I thought, okay, well, what if you have the timer, you know, the editing screen here, and then when you click start, that goes down, and the timer is, you know, here behind it, and then when you press the reset button, it comes back up, you know, because the reset button is kind of like the top of the tab there. And yeah, and I thought that was kind of cool. But then a little bit after that, I thought, you know what, that's actually kind of backwards because the thing that is running, that's kind of, you know, appearing and running, is the timer. So it should be the thing that comes up in front, and then it should be the one that gets closed. And so this is the one that I'm looking at here. So you can see that I've got, you know, all the editing controls and the recents and stuff. And then when you press the start button, it brings this tab up, and then it's running in this tab. And this has a pause button and the cancel button. And this is something that I'm really, you know, kind of liking, is that the cancel button is now an X up the top rather than something on the same plane as the pause button, because that's something that was always kind of annoying me. When you've got a, you know, got those controls, if you think about it, the pause button, right, is something that's happening to the timer itself. You know, it's running or it's being paused. And canceling is something that's kind of happening to the app. So it's kind of more of a meta thing, right? It's, you know, stopping the app from doing something, which is running the timer, which Yeah, whereas the pause button kind of is interacting directly with the timer itself. And it's a little distinction there. I know I'm getting kind of nitpicky, but that's kind of, something that you don't necessarily consciously know, but you can kind of feel, something doesn't feel quite as right. And I think that this makes more sense having an X button up here that would dismiss this view, rather than having a cancel button here that just flips it back to the other screen. And yeah, just that in general, having this card layout, I think just makes more sense for the idea, because it makes more sense than having this single screen that contains all the states, because the editing state is a meta, thing. It's a thing that you're doing to the app. You're changing controls in the app. And then the actual timer is a separate thing that shows up. And yeah, I don't know. It comes down to kind of the way that you think of object-oriented programming, really. You've got the UI, and then you've got, so you'd have the editing UI, and then you want to make a separate one, which is the running UI. I don't know, the UI for the timer, and it kind of makes sense to separate those. I don't know. I'm thinking too much about it maybe, but I feel like it makes the app a little better, and that's what I'm striving for, right? So yeah, then I was playing around with where the more button could go, and thinking about the different layouts, right? Because if you've got an iPad, it's going to have a lot more space, so it might look kind of silly just to have a tiny circle in the corner there. So I thought maybe have just the circle icon on an iPhone where you've got a bit less space, and then have a full more text, or it doesn't look terrible having the full text there. But yeah, definitely text is a thing that I want to work more towards using in my buttons rather than just symbols. Yeah, and even this cancel button here, maybe having the text with a symbol, because the X is a pretty recognizable, symbol for apps. It really means to end something or to close something. And yeah, I think that's the idea that you want behind this timer. You're closing it, you're stopping it. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, closing it kind of seems like it'll keep running in the background while you're on the editing screen. So maybe I need something more clear about that, where it's not where it's not a close like that, because in other apps, closing it like that doesn't dismiss, it doesn't stop something, it just kind of hides it, which, yeah, actually, after all this brainstorming, that actually seems like, a kind of fatal flaw in this. Yeah, the idea of having it closed back down doesn't quite fit with the whole design language of that, because that shrinking and going back down is something that's then going to happen in the background, or that's what, is happening in your brain when you're doing that, right? Because it's not completely closed. Whereas if you press a button that cancels it and it completely disappears, yeah, you know what? Yeah, I think that's a fatal flaw right here. Okay, well, that kind of stinks, because it's, it feels like I've spent all this time on this design, but I guess that's, what I've done right now. I've spent this time to figure out that that's not right. So in a way, I guess, it's still learning. Yeah, so anyway, I, really like the look of this page in my sketchbook anyway, at the very least. And yeah, and I got a nice intro out of it. But yeah, so that's something quite interesting right there. I think I've kind of right now, okay, I'm going to split this into a separate part so that it's, because I just kind of changed my mind mid-video right there. So I'm going to now start talking about what I actually think now. Okay, so this is the page of ideas that I did, thinking that this tab idea, where it comes up and then you dismiss it, was the right idea. And here is why it's not the right idea. If you close that tab, or when you see that X button there, even though it, is definitely an X and it looks like a close button, you immediately think that it's not going to stop. You think that the timer is going to keep running in the background while you do some other stuff in the app. But obviously there isn't anything else to do in the app while it's still running. So it doesn't make sense to have that still running in the background, because there's no need to be setting another timer while the timer is currently running, if you understand what I mean by that. There's no real need to have, to be that prepared or whatever. There isn't anything, whereas like in the music app, right? You're playing a song and you're searching through and you're adding things to the up next playlist, right? And, I could set something up like that where you add multiple timers in a row, but I think that that's exceeding the point of it being a minimal timer. It's supposed to be as simple as it can be, and, do what you want a timer to do, and not do any more than than is in its scope, because then it just makes it a more complicated app that you have to spend more time learning and understanding, which is, not really desirable when you just want a quick app on your phone. So that idea of having it close down and pop up is actually not a great idea as far as intelligibility of the user interface goes. And yeah, that's something pretty interesting that I've learnt right now. And yeah, so I think I'm going to go back to the idea of having, the pause and the cancel button on equal hierarchy, because what that actually does is it actually applies, because what I was talking about before with it being a meta thing to the app, right? If something is just happening to the app, then you expect that it's not going to also happen to the timer. And so because this looks like a separate thing, a meta thing that's just going to happen to the app, it doesn't seem like it will cancel the timer. But obviously, it is actually going to. That's what the plan is for the app. So that's not what I want. So yeah, I'm going to put the buttons back on equal hierarchy, because it makes it seem like the timer and the app are linked. They're not separate. They're not separate things. It brings them all into one thing. So when you press the cancel button on the app, it cancels the timer as well, because that's how the app's going to work. So yeah, I think that makes more sense actually. And yeah, I'm actually really happy to have that distinguished, because it was, I don't know, it just wasn't quite gelling why this, what the app was actually, how the app sits in your brain. And yeah, I think that's good. So I'm going to close that one now, and yeah, and I'm going to go back to just just talking to the camera here. So yeah, that was a bit of a change of mind right in the middle of the video there, but I think that that's actually really good, because yeah, I don't know. So yeah, I just keep trying to affirm it to myself that it was a good thing that I realized that, because obviously it was. But anyway, I need to stop reaffirming that, because you got it the first time. So yeah, anyway, I'm going to do some more sketches now. And I don't know if I'm going to film it, because it was kind of annoying to set up the camera and all of that. But I'll definitely come back to you when I've done more sketches and I've understood that idea. And I think I'm going to write a little thing on that page about what I've discovered there, because I think that's a really useful thing to apply to apps in future, right? That idea of separation between elements of the app. Yeah, so I'll be back in a sec when I've done some more sketching. Okay, so as it turns out, I didn't actually go and do any sketching. I instead made a PowerPoint further clarifying what I was trying to talk about in the last rambly 6 minutes. So yeah, no sketching, no more sketching for this video. But yeah, you can look forward to my PowerPoint tomorrow. I'm very proud of it. I got very into it. I love making PowerPoints. Yeah, here's a quick preview. Yeah, cool. I'll see you probably tomorrow. No promises.